Luther King Jr. was born in Atlanta, Georgia in 1929. His father and grandfather were Baptist ministers.
When he was a boy, Martin went to school for black children only. There were certain places he and his brother and his sister could not go because of the color of their skin. He wondered why.
Martin grew up to be a Baptist minister like his father and his grandfather. He was called the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.
People listened to the powerful words of Martin Luther King Jr. He said he had a dream, and his dream helped to change the history of our country.
Martin Luther King Jr. lived at a time where there was a need for change. We will see how this dream helped to bring about the change.
Celebrate the birthday of a great American. His name is Martin Luther King Jr.
Why was he so great?
What did he do? I've heard his name, but I don't really know why he was so famous.
Which one of you can tell us something about Martin Luther King?
My grandmother lives in Montgomery. That's in Alabama. She told me all about him.
Tell us what she told you, Dina.
Martin Luther King was a preacher in Montgomery, and my grandmother went to his church. She said that a long time ago there was a law in Alabama that black people had to sit in the back of city buses. If a bus was crowded, they had to stand up and when white people wanted their seats.
Whoever heard of a law like that? What does that to do with Martin Luther King?
James. That law was a bad one, and Martin Luther King Jr. set out to change it. It all started one day when a tired little black lady named Rosa Parks was...
All right, y'all. You guys gotta move back. Aren't you gonna move?
No.
Why?
Why should I have to get up for these white folk?
I'm afraid that if you don't move, I'm gonna have to call the police.
Go ahead, call them.
All right. Officer! Officer! She won't move out of her seat.
If the driver asked you to move, why didn't you?
Do you think it's right for black people to get up for these white folk?
I don't know, but the law's the law. I'm gonna have to arrest you and take you to jail.
Go ahead.
This is not a just law, and we will protest it. We will not ride the city buses in Montgomery. We will walk. We will ride mules. We will drive wagons and share cars, but we will not ride a bus until the law is changed. If you will protest courageously, and yet with dignity and Christian love, when the history books are written in the future, someone will have to pause and say, there lived a great people, a black people, who had the courage to stand up for their rights, and we're going to do that.
Luther King and his people did not ride the Montgomery buses for a whole year.
Did that change the law?
Yes, James. The United States Supreme Court decided that people riding on the buses could not be separated or segregated because of the color of their skin.
Did? Just to make people sit down on buses?
My grandmother said he walked a lot.
What did he march for?
Martin Luther King was a peaceful man. He did not believe in violence. He thought marching was better than fighting. He led what were called freedom walks, or peaceful protest marches. He asked his followers to love their enemies.
Is that the way he got people to pay attention and listen?
Yes, Ida. His marches brought bad news to attention of people everywhere, including those who made the laws.
My grandmother remembers when black people could only eat in special restaurants for black people. She couldn't go to movies where white people went.
That's what the marching was all about, Dina.
About eating places and movies?
James, it was about giving everyone the same rights. Was it right to have one set of rules for white people and another set of those with black skin? Remember the bus? Don't you think that all people should be able to sit where they please?
But I still don't understand how Martin Luther King Jr. changed things.
Even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves, and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that my 4 little children one day will live in a nation where they will not be judged for the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. When we allow freedom to ring from every town and every hamlet, we will be able to speed up that day when all God's children will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Great God Almighty, we are free at last.
People watched the Freedom March on their TV sets and heard the moving words of Martin Luther King.
My uncle was there. He carried a sign that said, "We want to be citizens." My grandma has a picture of her.
Americans knew it was time to make new laws. The next year, in 1964, an act called the Civil Rights Act became a law.
Man can overcome oppression and violence without resorting to violence. The Nobel Peace Prize was not a personal honor. It is a tribute to the courage of millions of gallant Negroes and white people of goodwill. They followed a nonviolent course in seeking to establish a reign of justice and a rule of love in the United States. People around the world wept and mourned the death of Martin Luther King Jr. He died a young man, but his spirit and accomplishments live on today. In his 39 years of life, Martin Luther King Jr. changed America's thinking about the human rights of all people.